All right, guys. So the other day, I saw Jemele Hill write this tweet right here. She says, in response to a New York Times story, when you hear black people say we have to work twice as hard to get half as much as white folks, this is what we mean. And this was intriguing because she tweeted this in response to a complete clickbait story from the New York Times that talked about how two black students were named valedictorian and salutatorian for West Point High School, but after the events of two white students claimed a grade calculation error, the Mississippi school added their children as co-valedictorian and co-salutatorian. So I thought this was interesting. And I actually read the New York Times story, and I looked at the comment section under Jemele Hill's tweet. And of course, in the comment section, everybody's falling for Jemele Hill and the New York Times is clickbait. They're like, oh my God, you were so right, Jemele. White supremacy. It is the white man strikes again, not letting us blacks have anything, get any credit whatsoever, not letting blacks have anything. Okay? That's what they're saying. And guys, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying some people don't have to work harder than others to get ahead in life. But that's just not something that's exclusive to black people. That applies to everybody in life. Nobody is born with the same advantages or disadvantages, right? Like, some people are born in better situations than others. Generally, most people have to work pretty hard to be successful in life, period. And I never understood why certain people are worried about how hard others have to work rather than just focusing on working as hard as you can. Because like I said, man, shoot for the stars, land on the moon, right? Who knows? You might still reach the stars, okay? But at the very least, if you worry about yourself and not the competition, and you be the best version of yourself, you're going to end up in a good place, okay? Now, I do want to talk about this story because, like I said, this was complete race-baiting junk for the New York Times. And junk race-baiting stories like this, guys, I'm going to tell you, people are not going to continue to fall for this stuff. They're just not going to, because it's just made up. I read the New York Times story, and you know, they go throughout this whole thing talking about the history of racism in Mississippi and this, that, and the other, and they're trying to make race such a prevalent factor when this thing really came down to the school not following the rules that's actually in the handbook, right? And lo and behold, when you actually read a more legitimate version of the story, which came out a week before the New York Times story, which honestly makes it even worse because this story has been explained and everybody knows what the reasoning was and all the people behind it, but the New York Times decided to run with it anyways. But again, when you actually have an accurate account of what happened, it just shows you how garbage it is. Because the people that were responsible for making this correction were all black, right? These are all black people. So let's read a little bit more here. A dispute over grade calculations at West Point High School has ignited intense community debate and allegations of racism after two black students were initially named top of their class and later made to share the honors with white classmates. Ikeria, Washington, and Layla Temple, two black students at the high school, were named valedictorian and salutatorian of their class at a senior award ceremony last Thursday, several days before graduation. But after a white parent questioned school officials about whether they were following guidelines in the school handbook in determining the top students, Superintendent Parental McDonald named two other students who are white as co-valedictorian and co-salutatorian on Thursday morning, the day of graduation. Now, Parental McDonald said, hey, I'm following the guidelines of the handbook here. Actually following the rules that are written. He changed it. Now, you would think that according to the New York Times, if you just didn't read the story, right, that the person that changed this was some type of white supremacist. Except Parental McDonald looks like this, right? This don't look like a white supremacist to me. This man is a superintendent. So much for, black people not having opportunities in life, right? and white people being so superior to black people. We have this superintendent who's black, who made this decision. There's nobody else above him, okay, in a predominantly black town, okay? But again, they're crying racism here. McDonald told Mississippi Today the high school guidance counselor was new to the school and was given incorrect information about how to determine the designations. The counselor selected the 2 students based on quality point average, which is measured on a 4.0 scale, instead of a strict numerical average of the students' semester grades over their high school career, which the district defines as its grade point average, he said. McDonald said he looked at how valedictorian and salutatorian had been determined in past years and saw it was based on a 0 to 100 scale, or what the school refers to as GPA. The initial calculation was not conducted the proper way, he said. But the handbook a few pages later says, quote, GPA is calculated by averaging the grade point weights assigned to semester averages, which are 0.00 through 4.0. It goes on to say some classes may be weighted double. See guidance counselors for this information. A few pages earlier under class rank, the handbook simply says a student's rank in his or her graduating class will be calculated by averaging his/her semester averages. The parents' argument was that based on our handbook, we should have been using semester averages, he said, and when you generate the report for the system, it clearly shows the 2 white students would have been first and second based on that number. So let's get it straight here. If we're going to tell the story, let's tell the whole story. Based off the superintendent's interpretation of that handbook. Now, I get it. Some people think that weighted should count more than unweighted. And I think I understand a little bit how the grade point averages work. Because when I was in high school, you know, I actually took real college classes. Like I went to my last 2 years of high school, I was actually at an early college. So I took college classes, like all college classes. And my college classes actually were weighted less than AP classes, right? AP classes, you got like 6 points. And my actual college classes were weighted like honors classes, and I got 5 points for those, right? I didn't really complain about that because I didn't give a damn. But I'm just saying, those classes were weighted more because they were more rigorous. So I do understand people's arguments when they say, hey, well, you know, these other students had a better grade point average based off the weighted scale. If you take in consideration how hard the classes were, then, hey, you know what? They did better, right? Even though unweighted, and that's what we'll call it, the unweighted average, the white students did better. And I actually agree with that argument. I do think you should take in consideration how hard the classes actually were. Because, I mean, again, if you just taking regular classes and you get a 4.0, that's not the same as getting a 4.0 or even a 3.8 with taking AP classes or hard classes. It's not the same. But that's not the point. It's not about what it should be. It's about what it is. What are the rules in the handbook and how did they do this in the past? Now, if they want to change this going forward, I would 100% agree with that. Because I do think the students that take the harder classes should be recognized. But what this superintendent did is that he actually found a middle ground. He said, okay, well, technically based off what's in the handbook, the white students would have been number 1 and number 2. But instead of taking the honors away from black students, right, the 2 black students whose parents were complaining about this, we're just going to share it because honestly, you know, we want to give everybody credit, right? All these students were excellent. These were excellent students. We just want to give them credit, right? And to me, that's the perfect solution. But the New York Times instead ran with the whole racism narrative and people just ate it up because all they do is read headlines. They don't actually read the damn story. McDonald continued, if someone assumes I was discriminatory in my decisions, they are absolutely wrong. I don't know if I can tell you on the phone, but I'm African American myself. This is not based on who the parents are, the race of the kids. It's based off on doing what's right for all students. When contacted by Mississippi Today, Cynthia Matthews, the 2018 valedictorian of West Point High School, echoed McDonald, saying it's her understanding she was chosen based off overall GPA. Attempts by Mississippi Today to reach other former valedictorians and salutatorians from this school were unsuccessful. Meanwhile, Angela Washington and Ikeria Temple, the mothers of the black students, have questions. Quote, I'm still baffled, said Washington, who said she and Temple had a meeting with West Point High School principal, an assistant superintendent, and McDonald at lunch on the day of graduation. She said in the meeting, McDonald told her different information, that based on how the school made its calculations in the past, her and her daughters would be ranked first and second. Quote, what it looks like is because the handbook doesn't specifically say GPA grade point average or QPA quality point average to make the others happy, he changed the rules on his own, said Washington, who had requested a meeting with the school board this month. On page 10 of the school's 57-page handbook, under the heading Class Rank, it states only, a student's rank in his or her graduating class will be calculated by averaging his or her semester averages. But in a separate district-wide policy detailing how dual enrollment and dual credit courses are calculated, it states a 4.0 scale to determine QPA and GPA calculations, which some say means the district has not always defined GPA as a 0 to 100 score. Donald and other school officials admit the policy is unclear and needs to be better defined, but in the case of the 4 students, the damage had already been done. He then decided a fair thing to do was to name all 4 valedictorian and salutatorian and allow all to speak at graduation. That way, he pointed out, all the benefits from receiving the titles, such as scholarships offered to colleges, would be available to them all. Washington said she and Temple found out about the other valedictorian and salutatorian on social media and did not receive a call from the school. Both mothers said daughters were not explicitly told either, but instead were asked to return their stoles to the school without explanation. Temple said her daughter is deeply disappointed. The superintendent made her feel as if she wasn't as smart as the other kids and that she shouldn't believe that she's on their level. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. You're making that up. That's made up. Let me read a little bit more here. Washington said Ikeria has suffered public humiliation, pain and suffering, and emotional distress as a result of the confusion and the lack of communication. At the graduation ceremony on Thursday, McDonald took the stage at the beginning and apologized. Quote, "Nobody deserved to be ridiculed for the decision that I made. I pray, I ask you humbly, if there's a problem that you have with anything or whatever he said, charge it with me and please don't charge it to anyone else," he told in the crowd. Ikeria, Layla, and 2 other students, Emma Berry and Dominique Bergoli, then gave their speeches before the graduates walked across the stage to receive their diplomas. Layla's speech, he hinted at the controversy. "I'm so very grateful, honored, and humbled to be the true class of 2021 salutatorian," she began. All right, so look, so I think that's enough of that. You guys get the point. Apparently, the black parents are thinking about suing the school and, they complaining and whatnot. But my point is this, man. People will take stories like this and they will just run with it as far as they can. Because in 2021, guys, hear me clearly. I'm not saying there's no individual acts of racism. That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, there are individual races out here. But this story is not it. This is a primarily black neighborhood that is ran by black officials. The superintendent is black. And you're crying racism. I don't understand. Obviously, there's some confusion in the handbook about how to calculate it. And in the past, they've calculated a certain way. And this new guidance counselor came in and calculated it a different way, which resulted in confusion. And based off precedent, the 2 white students would have been 1 and 2. But instead of not honoring the black students at all, he decided to honor all of them to be fair. But because some people want to be selfish and can't just be confident in their own abilities and understand, okay, you know what? It's fine if I have to share this award. It's not a big deal. You got to whine and complain and cry racism when the people that's making decisions are black folks. It doesn't make sense. These type of boy who cried racism stories are the reason why real instances of racism are not taken seriously. Because every time you look, everything is racist when it ain't got nothing to do with race. Nothing to do with race at all. It's very clear from this story what happened. Very, very clear. But again, you got people like Jemele Hill, professional race baiters that go out here and say things to rile up the audience, to get people upset about something, to make people feel like, oh my God, the white man, white supremacy. Oh my God, we can't even win valedictorian or salutatorian anymore. We can't do anything because these white people are so against us. Again, that narrative is lucrative. You got people like Obama going out here talking about, oh my God, those Fox News, they're making white people afraid. They're making money off of white fear. And I'm like, well, isn't liberal media making money promoting this narrative that white people are dominant over everybody and that they're holding black people back? They're making money pushing the narrative that white people are holding black people back. This is just a part of that. The New York Times is making money pushing the narrative that somehow this situation is racism when the people making the decisions are all black in a black run community. It's really silly. And it just goes to show you how desperate the whole race narrative has gotten nowadays. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.